This podcast contains explicit content and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Don't say we didn't warn you.
Hi, my name is Madison.
And I'm Hannah.
And you are listening to Who's Knocking?
A true crime podcast.
Yes, welcome back. I believe this is episode 33. So clap on the hands for us.
Oh, go us.
We've made it to episode 33. Kind of a random number, but I think it's cool.
Quite the milestone.
Yeah. Today we are talking about Donald Harvey.
Okay.
I don't know. I never heard about him until I stumbled across him. And it's pretty the only thing I will mention is pretty high kill count.
Whoa, okay.
So, yeah.
Well, the only thing you told me is that there might be something medical, which I'm kind of scared of.
Yes.
Not a huge fan of medical stuff.
Yeah. And very grateful to be like a generally healthy person. I'm also very weary of the medical landscape. I don't know. I hate hospitals.
Yeah, me too. I get
doctors.
So scared. Yeah. Yeah. Needles.
Both of us suffer from pretty severe needle phobia. I have actually gotten really good because I'm now in my third pregnancy and there's been like a million needles.
Yeah, I think if you practice, it's true, because here's the thing with the needle phobia is that it is mostly irrational. So once you do it a bunch of times and see like, okay, it's fine, it's probably not as scary. It's just like the idea so much. Yeah, yeah.
Literally the first time I had to draw blood, when I first
found out I was pregnant,
I was like crying.
Yeah, I'd be crying. Yeah.
And I was like shocked.
And you thought he'd leave you?
I'm shocked he's still here to this day. But I guess he was like, I've impregnated this one. Yeah. But now I just went and got a vaccine the other day and I didn't like it. Like I don't look at it and I get really antsy and awkward, but it's better. And I think, and what I've wanted to do, although apparently you're not really supposed to do this within like a couple years after you've given birth and stuff, but I've wanted to go donate blood in the interim time.
My God, that's so terrifying.
I know, but I think
it's good for people, and it's actually even good for you too. I've heard, but
to keep it
scary.
Up, yeah. Because I did a round of cognitive behavioral therapy for my needle phobia when I was in high school,
I remember.
Didn't
they
helpful.
Make you? Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy. There's such limitations to it because phobias and like habits and beliefs live in the subconscious nervous system. So if you're like doing all just conscious talking, you're not getting to the actual like root of the fear of it. You're just rationalizing it, which still can help. But I recall they made you carry around a fake needle and you brought it to school and showed it to me. I was like, get that the fuck away.
Well, they just started introducing, I think it would have been really helpful if I had been prepared for it. And
I think there's benefits to it, but it's ultimately limited in my opinion.
Yeah.
My non-doctor, non-qualified.
To me, going through my pregnancies was cognitive behavioral therapy. It just kept reintroducing it to me and being I wasn't able to avoid it. The thing with cognitive behavioral therapy is you can be like, no. And if you're not made to do it, then you don't have to do it. And if you don't have to do it, then you can continue to avoid it. And the problem is avoidance. Whereas
I haven't gotten a needle in quite a while.
Yeah. Whereas a lot of I could have, if I really wanted to, I could have opted out of all the blood tests. There's just one.
Oh, really?
I mean, what are they going to do? They can't put a gun to your head and
it's good to know for if I ever get pregnant.
Well, they're testing you to make sure that everything's okay. But if you want to just go through it blindly, that's your
call. And if you're in tune with your body and the physical signs show that you are healthy, you technically don't need a blood test. But if you're I'm not sure, let me make sure, then I get it. But I feel if you're super healthy, you are.
You'd want to be there's things that you want to test for because it could harm your baby if something is going on and there might not be symptoms and stuff, but it still is technically your choice. There's one thing
trying to justify for me not wanting it.
Yeah. You can.
So there's
one thing though that they have to test for. it's like a blood,
yeah,
aspect of your blood.
You were telling me.
And like, if I didn't get these extra blood transfusion type needles, then it like the baby would probably die. So somewhat necessary.
Yeah.
But those needles were actually the least bad because they do them in your butt.
That's just as bad to me.
Well,
it's better. Is that better than your arm?
Yeah, I had 2 needles in the same day, and the one in my arm was so much worse.
You know what the worst is? Your hand. I think that's the worst.
Oh, like an IV?
Yes. That's the scariest to me because it's just like.
Well, it's the worst because it stays there.
Yeah, it's there.
I don't want that there.
No.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
So do we have any question of the day type situations?
Okay, I've been wanting to ask you, what is your favorite true crime documentary? Because I haven't watched any in a while. And also, fun fact, we used to just sit around all day. It's not that fun of a fact, but we literally used to sit around all day.
This is an extremely fun fact.
We just watch murder documentaries, but
no, there are so many. Like Netflix, I
feel like
been pumping out documentaries and like mini series and stuff. And my favorite form of documentary is like a mini series, like a 4-episode.
Yeah, that is a good way to watch it because
then it can be
breaks.
It can be super long and detailed, but also
you
like,
don't have to watch it all at once. So it's
and also like, you know, it doesn't have to be like a 5-season series or whatever. Like it can just be like 4 mini documentaries.
Yeah, that is a really good way to do it. You're right.
Yeah. Or at least, I don't know. Okay. I've probably watched like 1,000 in my life. So I don't know like what my very favorite is, but, Don't Fuck with Cats.
Oh, okay.
Really, really good. Luca Magnotta.
I know the story, but I have not seen it.
This Staircase was a pretty old one.
The Staircase is good. I think we watched it together. I think 6 parts. I remember.
But I think did Netflix do like they did some like additional ones episodes later? Yeah, like it's 10 episodes. I think there was like 6 back in the day. There was 6, and then there was like an update where they added.
Did they say if it was an owl?
I think they presented that theory, but yeah, they're like an owl came in. Yeah.
Some people believe that.
Oh,
like I don't know if it's true or not, but it just seems.
I mean, it's possible.
It's so unlikely,
but I highly don't believe that. That's not how you say that, but it's I don't. Wild Wild Country.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Was really good, which was about this cult. You would really like it, actually.
Yeah,
you should watch that. It's like this
kind of thing.
This like I don't know where he was from, but he was like this like guru guy. He's from India, and then his cult took place in Oregon, and it was so messed up. That documentary was really, really good.
Okay, I think I know the person it's about.
The Bhagwan.
Did he drive like a bunch of really expensive cars? Was he that guy?
I don't remember, but it's possible. Another one that was so good, I watched it twice, was The Keepers. Did you ever hear about that one?
I don't think so.
That is about, and it's very disturbing, but that one is about this nun who was killed, and then like going through the investigation of her murder, they just unraveled like all this sexual abuse and crap that happened.
Shocking sexual abuse, and didn't see that coming.
But also her murder seemed to be like it was just the way it came out was really crazy, and the investigation is very interesting. And
it does sound very interesting. Yeah,
she was like a very beloved woman and like a really nice. You mostly hear about these old Catholic schools and all these nuns were like horrible.
Yes, terrible, I have heard
but
those.
She sounded like a lovely woman. That one, and the way they made it was really well done. Those would be my like Netflix suggestions, but I'm always very open to taking suggestions if anybody has suggestions. Really
let us know.
But there's so many. There's just like an unlimited amount of amazing true crime documentaries out there.
There's a lot more now. You're right.
Yeah, I was just scrolling through Netflix and like there's tons and good ones. Don't Fuck with Cats was really good. And Don't Fuck with Cats, for everybody else who has watched what's it called? What have I been talking about? That other documentary, The Tinder Swindler.
Oh, yes.
It's the same people who made The Tinder Swindler that made Don't Fuck with Cats.
Okay.
And that one is really good too. Luca Magnotta.
I mean, that's a crazy story. So
I want to do that one. I think that'd be a good one for us to do.
You should. It's very interesting, I think.
Yeah.
And I know
and
about
local
him.
To us.
Yeah, that's true. Scarborough. There's definitely something in the water there.
And like he's like in Montreal.
Yes, I live there. But yeah, he definitely everything I know about him is really interesting, like in a bad way.
Yeah.
Really fucked up. But I don't know a lot of details. So I would be very interested to know that.
And I think the documentary it delved into his childhood a little bit, but
yeah, I don't really know about his childhood.
I'd
and
want
really
to know
like
more.
To.
I'd want to know more. Anyway, so I think we've rambled on for a while. Maybe we get into it.
Sure.
So, Donald Harvey, I'm going to rate this. It's hard to rate. I think it's hard to rate this one because it's a lot of victims. But I don't know. I'm just like not scared of him.
Okay.
Like it doesn't.
Even though he did medical stuff.
I'm gonna go with a 6, but I don't. Okay. I feel like the number of people that he murdered should put it at like higher, but I don't know. That's just what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
You can argue with me later, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. So Donald Harvey was born on April 15th, 1952 in Butler County, Ohio. He was the oldest of 3 children, and shortly after his birth, the family moved to Boonville, Kentucky, which is a rural community in the Appalachian chain. And Donald's parents were Ray and Goldie Harvey. I really like the name Goldie for like a lady, by the way.
It is a really nice name. You're right.
It's like cool.
I kind of want to name my next dog that.
Yeah, it's cool. I kind of like
that is a really good name.
I have a baby I've yet to name. So.
Oh, are you going to take that name?
Maybe you can have it too.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like Chris would hate that name, but I kind of like it. Like Goldie
Hawn. I like it too. Yeah, it's a good name.
So the family were practicing Baptists. Didn't seem like they were like crazy Baptists or anything. They're just, that's what they were.
And maybe everybody was, I feel like, in that time and place.
Yeah, for sure.
Or most.
Like, it was way more weird to like not be religious or whatever. Donald apparently was a good-looking kid who was well behaved. He was happy and sociable. He appeared to be, at least. He was kind of a loner. He did have some friends, but he was definitely like a loner and kind of like an awkward, weird guy.
Okay.
He was popular with teachers and did very well in school. He was very bright, but he did grow bored of his studies. I think he was one of those kids that was like probably like too bright and whatever. So he did drop out of high school before he finished. He later did get his GED by the time he was 16 years old. Now, to most people, Donald appeared to be a pretty normal kid, maybe a bit introverted, but with above average intelligence. But, and this is kind of a side note. I don't, these were not proven to have affected anything, but Donald did appear to have suffered from 2 pretty major head traumas as a child.
Oh.
Once at age 6 months.
Oh, yeah. I feel like it's
relevant, but there's something that's more relevant. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
His father had fallen asleep while holding him and dropped him on his head, which is why it is so dangerous to fall asleep with a baby on you.
That seems very dangerous. Yeah.
You really should not do that.
Babies are so fragile.
And their heads are so mushy.
Oh.
And the second incident happened at age 5, where Donald fell off of a running board of a truck and hit his head, which I don't know what a running board is. I assume it's just like the back of a truck.
Yeah. Ooh, that seems really bad as well.
Yeah. And it produced a 5-inch long gash on the back of his head, but he never did lose consciousness. So there's that.
That's good.
Those are just 2 random facts that are, I guess, relevant. I think any head injury you kind of want to state. Another factor to consider was that Donald's parents apparently had a pretty tense relationship that may have bordered on abusive. It's kind of unclear, but not to him, but to each other.
Interesting. Okay.
Goldie did claim that Donald grew up in a loving home. I suppose this is kind of like a he said, she said, plausible, but unconfirmed.
Yeah, that's hard to say.
But the part of Donald's childhood that was by far the worst, and undoubtedly a very large piece of this puzzle, is that from about age 4 on, Donald was sexually abused on a continual basis by his mother's half brother, Wayne.
Oh, that's so fucked up.
Who was only 9 years older than Donald.
Wow.
So at age 4, this kid would have been 13.
Oh.
So yeah, that's pretty messed up.
That's, yeah.
And especially, when it's something like that starts at age 4, like,
yeah, you can't really talk about it, right? Like, you probably don't have the ability to like really talk about it.
No. And yeah, you're like totally groomed and tricked into thinking that it's a normal thing.
Yes. It's so easy to trick kids.
Like, Isla just turned 4. So like the 4-year-old mindset, like I can't even think about.
You could tell her anything and she'd just believe it basically at that age.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially if it comes from like an authoritative figure or like somebody,
especially like older,
somebody that they think is cool. Like,
yeah.
So Wayne would force Donald to perform oral sex on him and use Donald to masturbate. About a year after things started with Wayne, a neighbor of his also began abusing young Donald.
That's crazy how that happens. It seems like that happens a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, this cousin, or what is it? It's his mother's half brother. What is that? It's like your half uncle kind of.
Yeah, uncle.
That like, it's, I don't understand how, like, if it was just random that the neighbor was going to start abusing him too, or like if they were friends.
That's what I mean. Oh yeah. If they were friends, it kind of makes sense. But if it was random, and I do feel like I hear about that a lot.
Yeah. It's like, maybe he was like super vulnerable. Like maybe his parents didn't pay attention to him.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Or maybe it's within the culture. Like sometimes it's kind of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, that's fucked up.
I know.
But yeah. So this went on for a very long time. Wayne would abuse Donald whenever he was at their grandmother's house. And he had Donald convinced that this was just something that boys did together. And the neighbor told Donald that if he ever told anyone, he would shoot Donald's parents, and then Donald would end up in an orphanage. So
wow.
That's how he kept. They both had their own ways of keeping Donald quiet at a young age.
Yeah.
But by the time Donald got old enough and strong enough to say no or fend off these two men, he chose instead, and this is kind of interesting, he chose instead to manipulate and extort both of them.
Oh.
Mostly for money. And in this way, he was able to kind of seek revenge on his abusers and maintain control over them.
I was not expecting that.
And then, like, I guess, I don't know if he would say that, like, it started to turn into a consensual thing, but like he, still was involved sexually with them, but like made them pay him, basically.
Weird.
So that's like super interesting, because like there's different ways that I think people, like, once they get to the point, especially when you start from a young age, like you take Catherine Knight, for example, like once she figured out that she could just like punch them or like hurt them, then it stopped or whatever. When he got to that point where he figured out like, oh, what's wrong that they're doing this to me, and could have done something back, he was like, well, pay me, bitch.
Honestly, good for him.
So I mean, it's a choice.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in most cases, and I feel like I probably would just like want to escape those people. Yeah. Like, I don't think I'd have the like skill to be like, you know what? You can pay me for that.
Yeah. It's like I have not heard of somebody going that route.
Yeah, me neither.
I find it very interesting.
How old was he when that happened?
I don't know at what age, but I have to imagine it was like in his teens.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so Donald's uncle Wayne had 2 marriages. His first wife, Donald didn't really remember much, but the second one was beaten pretty badly by Wayne, Donald recalls.
Oh.
And Donald would often join the 2 of them in a threesome with the couple.
Really?
Yes, because it seems, okay, so apparently having Donald be present was the only way that Wayne could, quote, get it up. Okay. So it's clear to me that what I get from this is that his uncle Wayne was like a closeted homosexual.
Yeah.
In an environment where that was not something that people took kindly to.
Yeah, fair.
Which is why probably he was sexually abusing this boy in private, because he wanted to keep that to himself or whatever. And then he would like bring Donald into his relationships with women so that he could have sexual relationships with women.
I wonder if it was like obvious to the women. Like he was probably not really paying attention to them. And
yeah, well, and then also he was like beating them. So it just like, it's just a really messed up. I don't even know.
I feel like he was abused. Like this is.
Well, I'm sure most people who abuse people were abused themselves, right? Like it's all pretty cyclical. I have to assume it's not just, doesn't just come out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like he hates women.
Yeah, well, it sounds like he's a repressed gay man who like probably hates himself because he doesn't want to be gay, but he is gay. He can't help that.
Right.
And takes it on other people. That's a pretty classic situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm just assuming that Appalachia in the 60s and 70s was like not very gay friendly.
Yeah.
In fact, I know it was
safe
not.
To assume that. Yeah.
It's like a Baptist community. They didn't like, I don't know. I don't know how accepting they are now, but it was not at the time. Anyway, Donald also later admitted to 2 events in his childhood where he killed animals.
Wow. Okay.
One was a baby bird or a chicken who he claims to have mercy killed.
Stop.
His mother told him that the bird would not survive and to give it back to its mother. But believing the mother would peck the baby to death, Donald decided to take matters into his own hands, and he says he killed it with a hoe. So I assume he just like chopped its head off or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the second instance was at age 15 or 16 when he took the neighbor, and I don't know if this was the same neighbor who was abusing him. I kind of feel like it was.
Okay.
He took the neighbor's 2 cows out into the woods and slit their necks.
Don't take it out on the cows. The cows did nothing.
Yes. Now, his motivation for killing the cows, he says, was financial loss to the neighbors, which is, I think, him getting back at the neighbor for sexually abusing him.
Yeah, I mean,
also, I think it's important to remember that Donald grew up on a farm. So like to him, killing animals is not the same as like Jeffrey Dahmer, like finding things and like looking in their whatever. Like
that's true.
Just more a part of life.
Yeah.
But again, I thought I should include those. At age 16, Donald had his first consensual sexual encounter with a man and got involved in an off-again, on-again relationship. The man's name was James Peluso, and it lasted for about 15 years on and off.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, James Peluso dies.
Oh.
Because Donald kills him.
After that long?
Yeah. I don't know much about that specific death, but I know like that's how that does end. So Donald does grow up to be gay, interestingly.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, because I'm under the impression that like being gay is like a pretty innate thing. Like your sexual identity is just like what happened. So it's like either coincidence that he just turned out to be gay also.
Yeah. I think that like everybody's on a spectrum of it. And I think that like sometimes like you are like closer to one end where it's like chances are you're going to be gay or straight, but sometimes you're kind of in the middle and then your early sexual experiences can shape it too.
Well, yeah, because you have like he had, first of all, very early sexual experiences.
Yeah. It affects the way your brain develops.
Yeah, it's just like an interesting, I don't know. Not my area of expertise, so I don't know, but.
No, me neither. And I don't think there's like an exact science to this kind of thing. Like I feel like there's patterns, but there's going to be exceptions. But it's interesting too, because it's like if he had been abused by like his aunt, would he still have turned out to be gay? Like it's like, obviously we can't know, but.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question that I don't have the, answer to.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah. Donald left high school and he decided to move to Cincinnati, Ohio, and he got a job at a factory. He claimed the move was out of boredom, but I do also think it's possible it was to either or both escape his sexual abusers who are both still around and in his life.
Fair.
Also, he was a gay man. I'm sure it's not easy where he was. I think Cincinnati, Ohio was like, I don't know if it was much better, but it was like, that's a bigger place than the rural town he was living in.
I think it's nice to get away.
Yeah. And there's clearly a lot for him to run from where he is.
True.
Now, eventually, Donald was laid off from his job at the factory. I think they laid off a bunch of people. And his mother asked him to come home to be with his ailing grandfather who was at the hospital.
Okay.
And Donald obliged, as he didn't have anything else to do because he didn't have a job. He started spending a lot of time at Marymount Hospital, which was a Catholic institution in London, Kentucky, which was not far from Boonville. And he started getting really close with the administration staff and the nurses, who were all nuns. And they all really liked him. They thought he was like a super cool guy. Soon, one of the nuns offered him a job at the hospital as an orderly, and Donald took her up on his offer, on her offer. He had no previous medical training. His duties included cleaning up patients, changing sheets, bedpans, moving patients around within the hospital, dispensing medications, inserting catheters, stuff like that.
Okay.
So I don't know. It sounds like a pretty shitty job to me. It's like, seems like a step below nurse kind of thing.
Well, I just feel like knowing that he's a murderer, it scares me that he is like doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't really want him doing that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's a lot of control and power that he has.
Yep. And those are valid concerns, as we'll see.
Okay.
In May of 1970, Donald was 18 years old, and he had been working at Marymount for only a few weeks. He was doing really well, but things were pretty uneventful. Donald had been called to reinsert an IV for an 88-year-old stroke patient named Logan Evans. When Donald went in, he lifted the sheet to go get the IV to reveal Logan had a handful of feces, and he smeared it all over Donald's face. Claims Donald.
Wow. Well, yeah, hard to. I don't know if I believe anything he says, really.
Yes, but... and we'll see later, like when he gets apprehended. One thing I will say about his claims is like he made a very lengthy confession to a lot of things, and every single thing that they were able to look into that he said checked out.
Interesting.
So he appeared to be very honest in the end.
God, it's so hard to know.
But you cannot know that he actually, there's no physical evidence of like the feces in the hand, right?
Yeah. Why would he do that?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, like especially if you're 88 years old. I don't know if this man had dementia in the hospital. Like,
okay. Got it. You think he like wasn't in his right mind?
It's very possible that he, could have been not of a sound mind for either dementia reasons, medication reasons.
Yeah.
Many reasons.
Okay.
So it's not the most crazy thing.
Yes.
But it also,
I just don't get why, like logically you would, but for that makes sense.
Yeah. So apparently this incident enraged Donald, and he retaliated.
It's really annoying.
I wouldn't like it either, but also Donald takes it too far.
Yeah.
Because he retaliated by smothering Logan to death with a pillow wrapped in blue plastic sheeting.
Definitely not. Yeah.
That's not where I would have taken it.
No.
And apparently he claims that he used a stethoscope to listen to Logan's fading heartbeat as he was smothering him to death.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure he did.
Once Donald was sure that Logan was dead, he cleaned him up, gave him a new hospital gown, and told the other staff that he died suddenly, and nobody suspected anything. The first murder.
It's so easy to get away with that kind of thing because it's
an
old person in a hospital. Like, of course they died.
And that's, I think, the like most disturbing thing about this whole case is just like how easy it was.
There are quite a few cases like this, and the person who actually has the highest known murder count or whatever was a doctor, because he could
Harold Shipman in the
It's so easy to get away with murdering people in the hospital because it's like they're already sick. Oh, okay.
And
you're not going to be surprised they die.
Harold Shipman, I learned a little bit about him too. He would actually take house calls and go to people's homes
just to murder them.
While he was there, he would find their will and like leave himself money.
Yeah, that's kind of like, I feel like in a way it's kind of like evil, like genius, but also it's like you're gonna get caught if you're on the will of every person who dies.
Yeah, well, that's how he got caught. But it took.
Is that how he got caught?
Yeah. And I don't know if he did it to everyone. I just know that that's how he got caught. I just learned a little bit about him through this, but anyway.
But that is like, it's so easy to get away with.
It's harder nowadays because I think they've caught on to these.
Oh, they
but
realize this happens. That's
especially
good.
in this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first murder appeared to have been kind of a spur of the moment murder of opportunity, not super premeditated.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and guess that this was done out of rage.
Yeah.
I think it taught Donald a very important and very unfortunate lesson, was that of a very vulnerable hospital patient was very easy to kill and get away with, as we were just saying.
Yeah.
It was the next day that Donald claimed that he accidentally inserted the wrong size catheter into a man named James Tyree.
That seems so painful.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, James screamed, but Donald restrained him with the heel of his hand until he vomited blood and died.
Wow. Yeah, that's really terrifying.
Within the next 2 weeks, he disconnected the oxygen tank of an elderly woman named Elizabeth Wyatt. He claimed that she told him that she wanted to die to relieve her suffering.
Well, they always say that.
And this was the first of his, quote, mercy killings.
Yeah, I'm
which
sure.
He would kind of
honestly, I already hated hospitals before this, just because they scared me, because stuff like this can happen there.
Well, and what I take from this is like, when you go to the hospital, you want to be somebody who's like strongly advocating for yourself, being fully aware of what's going on.
But it's so easy to not be aware. Have other people with you.
Yeah, it's like
I've gotten advice from doctors before that was like bad medical advice that led to worse things for me. So to me, it's like even the like good doctors can really fuck you up, let alone the people who just like don't care or actually want to hurt you.
Yeah. And it's like, and also like our healthcare system, specifically in Canada, like it's like decent or whatever, but like it's stretched very thin. And I know people who've been in hospitals for a lot of reasons and like who've seen mistakes and like misdiagnoses and everything. I grew up, my dad is a respiratory therapist, or was as part of his job or whatever. So he was always like very aware, like whenever somebody is in the hospital, he's like, this is how they should be doing it and blah, blah. And he gets himself involved so that people know that like, you can't fuck around with these people because somebody here knows how this all works.
That's good.
Like having somebody who can advocate for you, who is aware of the system and how it works, and like has like comes in being like, there is a standard that you need to uphold here, is a very helpful thing.
Yes.
So my advice to people is if you ever end up in the hospital, find somebody, if you can, who like maybe somebody who's a nurse or a doctor or whatever, works in a hospital for whatever capacity, and like use them to be like, can't fuck with me, please.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because shit happens, especially in a system where people are very overworked.
Oh my God.
Anyway, Donald's next victim was Eugene McQueen, who had breathing problems. Now, Donald just simply flipped Eugene onto his stomach so that he slowly drowned in his own fluids.
How frequently is he doing this?
Well, I will tell you in a couple of paragraphs because it's very frequent.
Wow.
Then not long after that, there was an incident with a patient named Ben Gilbert. Ben was apparently disoriented and we're not entirely sure why. Donald had come to catheterize Ben, and Ben thought that Donald was a burglar for whatever reason. This sounds like a medication or a dementia type thing.
Okay.
Donald says that Ben knocked him out with a metal urinal. When Donald came to his senses, he was very angry. And that, like, he stewed in his rage. And that evening, he decided to murder Ben. He went back into Ben's room. He inserted a catheter that was much too large.
My God.
And then, sorry, this is very upsetting, especially if you have a penis. Then he inserted an unbent coat hanger, which punctured Ben's bladder and intestines. And that started internal bleeding, which led Ben to go into shock and then into a coma.
I mean, that's one of the worst things that can happen to you.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
And once Ben was out, Donald removed the hanger and the catheter. He put in a catheter of the correct size.
Oh, he's so creepy.
And then he left, came back later and said that he found Ben Gilbert in that state. And nobody thought anything of it.
Wow.
Less than 1 year after Donald committed the first murder, he had already killed 15 people.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Take that in. 15 in less than a year.
And were they all men?
Nope. No, they're men and women.
Oh, yeah, it was mixed.
They were pretty much all old.
Yeah.
Older.
Those are the easiest to murder. That, like, in most of these cases, it's people who are older.
People who are older and people who don't have like tons of family around.
Of course. They know exactly. So,
which is why it's so important to have people there advocating for you.
Yeah.
And why, like, if you know somebody who's in the hospital, who's by themselves, you should go advocate for them.
Oh my God. I can't think of anything scarier.
Just be like, hey, like, I'm a person who knows this person in their life. Like,
yeah.
Are things going okay in here? You know?
Yes.
All 15 of these people were at the most vulnerable points in their lives. They had put their trust into the facility and its employees to care for them in their time of need. God. Donald saw their vulnerability and took it upon himself to choose to end their lives. And in some of them, most of them in very brutal ways.
And you think rage is what's motivating him?
I think, and we'll get into a lot of them, like what, you know, that kind of stuff at the end. But I think that the first one was a rage thing, was that like he, you know, had all these like bad things happen to him. And like, you know, he's fighting his sexuality and blah, blah, blah. And then he kills somebody in a rage, liked that he did that, realized how easy it was to do. And, you know, it's
like an outlet for him now, basically.
He's like working at the bottom of the food chain in that place. He's a pretty intelligent person. It probably believes himself to be a much like more intelligent person, or like feels that he should be in a much higher position of power.
That's interesting.
And murdering these people makes him feel powerful.
Wow. That's
like a very surface level guess, but we'll go on and maybe we'll find some more things and we can see if I still feel that way at the end of this. Donald would later note how easy it was to get away with these murders undetected, since he was constantly working in the same ward at the same shifts and with the same people. Had he been rotated around more randomly, somebody may have been able to note an unusual amount of death seem to follow Donald around, but nobody suspected anything. And like, this is, Donald was a smart guy and he paid attention. Yeah. He was very friendly with the administrative people. Everyone thought he was a really nice guy. He was really good at being like a friendly person and getting along with everybody. So there was no odd behavior. There was nothing that like made him seem like a weird guy.
Yeah.
And he studied very meticulously the procedures and how everything worked and how scheduling worked. And
it's interesting how intelligent he is.
Yeah. And I don't know. I remember like with Gary Heidnik, it was like he had a very specific IQ. I don't know what his was
right.
But it was just clear that he must have come off as like, you know, a high school dropout. He's got a GED. He's working like a really low skill job, whatever, but like he's not dumb.
It's just interesting too, because obviously he's not one of these people that are mentally disturbed in the sense that they can't properly function in society. He is smart enough to blend in and he's smart enough to know better. And that's just what makes it pretty scary, to be honest.
Yeah. And you'll see some interviews with him at the end because he does seem like a pretty disturbed person.
Okay.
But clearly, like,
so I guess was kind of obvious, but he wasn't but like.
I think you're able to hide that. Like, he seems like a very disturbed person, knowing what he did.
Yeah.
If he like, and you'll see in the interview that
Gary Heidnik too. Last week, he's kind of like that too, right?
Yeah. Although, like, Gary Heidnik was like,
because didn't he make a lot of money and all this?
Yeah, but he also seemed to be like dirty and weird. I don't know. It's hard to know because like the only interview I saw with Gary, he seemed like totally deranged and out of it and whatever.
Oh, I want to see that.
And it's like really, it's like a bunch of little clips pieced together.
Yeah, it's an old case, right? Like there's not going to be that much about it.
Yeah, and this one, like, it's an interview with John Douglas, my main man.
Oh,
and like. this guy, Donald, like he really has himself together. Like he speaks like a normal person. He tries to come across as like a nice guy.
Oh, creepy.
And he's like speaks like kind of a gay man. I don't know if that's an offensive thing to say, but like he comes off like, if you don't know what he did, he sounds like a just friendly Southern man.
Did John Douglas talk about like his sex life during it? It's like, just so you know, me and my wife were just having sex, and now I'm here to do this interview.
Yeah. No. Yes. Well, he did this show where he like interviewed some people, some serial killers and stuff, and like it's mostly him interviewing it, so he doesn't really get into much about himself, but like it is like, it's very classic like mid 2000s, like then there's like shots of him like in the prison being like, Donald Harvey said that this and this and blah 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 blah, and it's just like, it's really dated.
I like those ones.
Yeah, me too.
I don't like the dramatized ones. I need it to be the footage of actually what happened. No. Otherwise, like, don't put it in.
But some of them have gotten a lot better at the like recreations.
Oh yeah,
Errol Morris fucking kills the recreation.
Yeah, I could see him being good at it. I think of the documentaries I saw like back in the day.
Yeah, it's like, no like Forensic Files.
Yes. Yeah.
So Donald continued giving people faulty oxygen tanks, or just
oh my god.
Wait, did I say that? Yeah. Yeah, he would give them faulty oxygen tanks, or he would just lower the levels so that they basically slowly suffocated.
That's terrifying. That's such
quietly alone in their room.
Such a painful way to die,
and so sad, especially if you don't know what's going on.
It's and you're so just sad. And for him, it's so sadistic because he's like doing all these different methods that painfully end people's lives. And sometimes it's not even like he's there to smother them and kill them. He's like, bye, you're going to die alone now.
And it's such a like narcissistic God complex thing to do because, you know, like there's all these people that he is killing, but he's also going to other people's rooms and being like,
I didn't kill you.
You get to live today. Like,
yeah,
because
that's fucked up.
He gets to choose who lives and who dies.
Okay, we need to screen who's in hospitals.
Yes, absolutely.
So scary that this happened.
All these people who are put in charge of like the most vulnerable populations, and
yeah,
just like your old grandma who goes there to, and like a lot of these people, I'm sure a lot of these people would have died anyway, but and not anyway. Like I'm sure a lot of these people were, you know, went into the hospital and probably weren't going to come out, but it's not up to some random guy to decide that. That's
and then like a some of these people too, right?
And some of these people would not have died.
Definitely, yeah.
One day he decided to murder a woman named Viola Reed Wyan, a leukemia patient, because he said she smelled bad.
Wow.
He was suffocating her with a pillow wrapped in plastic like he had Logan Evans, but somebody came into the room while he was doing it.
Oh shit.
He stopped and pretended that he was not in the middle of trying to murder a patient. A patient. And I
wish he hadn't noticed they came in.
Yeah, and that person just didn't notice, didn't realize what was happening.
Yeah.
And later that evening, Donald went back, hooked her up to a faulty oxygen tank, and just waited for her to die.
So fucked up.
Donald committed a number of other murders with faulty oxygen tanks, and then he moved on to painkillers. Margaret Harrison was killed with an overdose of Demerol, which is a synthetic opioid, morphine and codeine, which are also opioids, I believe.
I mean, that sounds like a way better way to die than some of the other things he's done. Like, it's all bad, but being high on morphine, harmful. I've heard people who get high on morphine once, it's like all they can think about.
That's terrible.
Yeah. It was scary. I think it's just like very highly addictive.
Yeah.
But it probably feels like, you know, good. I don't know.
Yeah. Milton Bryant Sasser was also killed with an overdose of morphine. Over that same year, Donald began a secret relationship with a man named Vernon Midden. Midden was a married man with children, and he was an undertaker. Donald started learning from him about how dead bodies present after the person has died, based on how they died. So he's starting to like get more into it and like learn things. Vernon taught Donald a lot of useful information that would help him hide the physical evidence of his murders from coroners, specifically evidence of asphyxiation. By the end of March of 1971, this is like a year into it, Donald decided to leave his job at Marymount Hospital. He also tried to commit suicide. He did this by setting fire to an empty bathroom in the apartment building that he lived in, and he tried to die by asphyxiation. The suicide attempt was unsuccessful, obviously, and Donald was subsequently arrested for the destruction of property and charged a fine of $50.
Okay.
Not long after that incident, Donald was arrested for burglary. During his interrogation.
Wait, burglary of like a bank or a store or what? Or a house?
I don't know. I think it was like a house or something.
Okay.
But during his interrogation, he just straight up told the officers that he was responsible for killing 15 people at Marymount Hospital.
Oh, interesting. So he wanted to get caught?
Yes. The officers took these claims seriously.
Sorry to cut you off. I feel like that is a sign of somebody who is kind of socially intelligent, because he probably is like, fuck, there's something so wrong with me. I don't want to be like this, but I can't control it. Like that kind of, yeah.
And that's exactly my read on this whole situation. He leaves the hospital. He's like, okay, I've murdered 15 people. Like, this is getting out of hand. I don't want to do this, but like, I love it so much.
That's crazy.
He leaves. He tries to kill himself. Doesn't work. So I'm sure that this burglary, he didn't really care about. He just wanted to get arrested. So that
because it's not in his history to commit a crime like that.
Exactly. The officers took the claim seriously and they started looking into it, but they found no evidence for the crimes. Nobody at the hospital believed Donald was telling the truth.
That's so annoying. So
Donald ended up pleading guilty to petty theft and again paid a small fine and was let go. Wow. And this is something that, like, there was a woman here who was killing people at long-term care facilities, and she admitted things to a number of people and nobody did anything about it.
Do you think people just don't believe them?
One of them was like somebody at a church, like a pastor or something. So there's like a confidentiality thing, which I feel like you're allowed to tell if somebody's killing people.
I think we can break the rule for that.
Yeah. And then I think some of it was people who just didn't believe because she was like a friendly lady.
But it's just that, like, who would say they murdered people and not, like, why would you say that?
A shocking amount of people do that.
People say, hey, I murdered someone.
A lot of people falsely confess to crimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Why would you do that? How could that possibly, like,
strange phenomena?
Yeah.
A lot of people suffer from weird mental health.
I mean, you must have some, I'm sorry, but you must have some type of, like,
there's a lot of attention seeking people. There's a lot of people who
that's not a good way to get attention.
No, but it's like, that's confuses a lot of cases. A lot of, like, very high profile cases. Like the amount of people who've confessed to killing John Benet Ramsey.
No, that's different though. Somebody who's at a hospital and it's like not like a publicized case that would get them, you know what I mean? Like, people say that about famous cases because they want to, like, join the, like, you know.
No, but people confess to a lot. Like, it happens, and like you can get false confessions by, like,
crazy.
You know, we all know these people who confess to things because they have, you know, deficiencies or lower IQs or whatever. And
but if it's like somebody at the hospital who's, you know, working there, it's kind of like, maybe we should look into this.
They did.
Yeah, but like maybe
they looked into it.
I guess.
It seems
no, but
like
it's also like, how could you find evidence of that? How could you find evidence of that?
That's the whole point. They couldn't find evidence.
Annoying.
So, like,
that's so annoying.
Literally, like, it doesn't even seem like they were like, yeah, whatever. Like, they went to the hospital, they spoke to people, they looked into that, they looked for evidence. And I think I have to kind of believe that Donald, like, maybe kind of wanted to,
like, he backtracked,
or like he was like, okay, well, if I get caught, then I'll get caught. But like, maybe he wasn't like, okay, I killed this person at this time. Like, I think it's very possible that he was like more wishy-washy about wanting to get caught. Like, you know, if you really want to kill yourself, you could probably figure it out.
Right.
No, but it sounds like the people that he did confess to did look into it and like came to the conclusion that he was just being a weird guy.
Definitely a weird guy.
And it probably, like, maybe they found out that he had, like, recently tried to commit suicide and thought that, like, you know, if you're suicidal, it's not crazy that you're going and trying to confess to crimes and, like, you just be like, this guy has some mental problems, and I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But that whole series of events, just like,
it's crazy when people almost get caught.
Yeah. So crazy. Like, and there's so many instances of it.
Yeah.
So around this time as well, Donald had his first and only heterosexual encounter with a woman named Ruth Ann Hodges. Okay. 9 months after that encounter, Ruth gave birth to a son and claimed
really one encounter.
It's like, wow, you didn't know how the female, like how the sex with a woman is. Like you know, it's like don't shoot in there, man. Anyway, so she gave birth to a son and she claimed that Donald was the father. And over the years, Donald has flipped back and forth, stating that he is or is not the father. It remains unclear.
Interesting.
In June of 1971, Donald enlisted in the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, where another Air Force guy.
I know, all of them.
Yeah.
No, not all, but most.
Donald killed no one, he says. He felt that the environment was far too regimented and that he would be caught for sure if he tried to kill somebody.
Yeah,
unlike the hospital.
Yeah.
He had a relationship with a man there.
He is in control of his actions a little bit.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. He's fucked in the head, but like he's knows what he's doing.
He's in control enough to be able to not.
And yeah, exactly. He had a relationship with a man while there, and he said that he would have liked to kill him. Don't know why, but
and he was in a relationship with him.
Yeah, he loves to kill the people. We'll get there.
I hate that.
His stint in the Air Force was short-lived as he attempted to kill himself again, this time by overdosing on NyQuil. And after that incident,
how much NyQuil do you have to have? Because that's
I don't know. It just sounds like you
can drink like a cup of NyQuil. Yeah, like how much NyQuil was he drinking?
I don't know. But after that incident, the military began looking into his past, found out about his previous charges and statements about having killed 15 people in the hospital.
Maybe they should have looked into that when he joined.
Yeah, and the Air Force was like, nah, I don't think we want this guy here. They gave him a general discharge in March of 1972.
Oh my God.
After coming home and continuing to suffer from depression, he made another suicide attempt by overdosing on Placadil, which is a sedative, and Equinil, which is the tranquilizer. And he was taken to the hospital where his stomach was pumped and he survived yet again. After this last suicide attempt, Donald was sent to a psychiatric hospital. He was given electroshock therapy to treat his depression, but it seemed to have no effect. When he was released from the hospital, his parents said that he could not live with them anymore. They were, I guess, sick of his issues.
How old was he at this point?
This was in 72. And when did I say he was born? 52. So he's 20. So he's quite young.
That's pretty young. Yeah.
Yeah. Donald then got 2 jobs at 2 hospitals, and he had 2 relationships with men where he mostly lived with them. And during this time, he didn't kill anyone in either hospital.
Interesting.
So what do I have here? So I think that from age 19, when he left Marymount and didn't kill anyone else, and he tried to admit to his crimes and enter different fields, the Air Force, for example, and he tried to kill himself multiple times, it kind of seems like he was trying to stop himself.
Right.
And I don't know how else you would see that, like, and how good of a job he did, like how committed he was to stopping himself. I don't know. Yeah. But it does seem like he was making an attempt to stop himself from killing people.
I agree. It does seem like it. Yeah.
And it seems like he did feel a very strong urge to kill people. And like, yeah, he was trying to stop, but it didn't really work. And how much of that is like, oh, it didn't work. And how much of that is like, he didn't really want to stop. That's up to, like,
yeah, it's interesting. Like,
I don't know how you determine that.
I can't relate to the feeling of having an urge to kill people. Like, I don't know how that would feel.
No. And I think it's one of those things. It's like, there's certain, and you see this with a lot of like serial killers or people with like, you know, pedophilic tendencies or whatever. It's like, those are clearly like things that you don't want to, you shouldn't, like, there's strong societal incentives to not do that. You don't want to kill people. You
don't know
wanna,
it's
like,
wrong.
Abuse children. You know
most
it's
people
wrong.
do. Yeah.
But it's like, how strong are those urges? That's what makes people commit those acts. I don't know. It's like hard to. It's very must be a very individual thing to determine how strong those urges are. I don't know. Again, like you said, I can't relate to that feeling, so it's hard to know.
Yeah.
So Donald moved back to Cincinnati, Ohio in September of 1975. He got a job working nights at a VA medical center, which is like a veterans medical center. Yeah. He had all of his regular duties, but he also was made the morgue assistant, which he fucking loved.
I'm sure.
And he continued to learn all about how dead bodies presented and get really into that kind of thing.
I mean, that is probably really interesting.
No, it's totally interesting, but he's doing it for nefarious reasons.
Right.
Donald also joined some sort of occult group. And this group was interested in, like the dark arts and like weird occult stuff. And it apparently required some sort of initiation, like some sort of like sexual initiation with a woman. And like it was supposed to be for like married couples. I
want to know more about this group.
Why? Because you think it sounds cool?
No, like I think I wouldn't want to join it, but it sounds like I would just feel like it'd be interesting to know about.
Yeah, I don't like, it's very unclear like what exactly it was, but it was like some sort of like it's basically like some sort of like satanic cult.
Yeah, but it's like, where do you connect with a satanic cult? Like, how are you meeting these people and how, like, the internet?
Yeah, I don't know where, and this is the 70s, so it's like
there's no internet.
I don't know where he just like stumbled upon these people. But,
yeah, exactly. Like, how do you get involved with that?
I was reading, like I was reading a bit about this through John Douglas, and he kind of figured that this was like another place that Donald was trying to take his like weird urges and like get them to take them out somewhere where he didn't have to like murder
another
people.
way. That's exactly.
You know, like he's clearly trying to like try all these different things to like keep him away from the hospital in a way.
I wonder if there would be a way to overcome those urges, you know? Like, I wonder if that is possible. It depends on like
what the urges are, like what you're like, say that you have some like weird sexual fetish. Like, as I said, I've been looking into BTK a lot, and like, he's like into like binding, like being bound and like binding other people. But like, he did not have the equipment to find a woman who is like into that sort of shit. And maybe if he could, then he could have like just had a time in a consensual BDSM community.
It's true.
But like, he was so shitty with women and such a loser that like he only felt he could do it to people who were unwilling, basically.
Yeah. And he might have been into that aspect of it too.
But this seems to be like, you like to murder people. So I don't know where you do that consensually. Like,
yeah, but not even like finding an outlet for it that's the exact same thing, but finding a surrogate behavior that would like fulfill that. You know what I mean?
It seems like that's what he's trying to do. Yeah. Like, he tries to enter the military. Maybe he thinks that he'll be able to like feel powerful by doing that. Tries to enter this like satanic cult. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
what the rationale there is, but like, it's something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So what am I saying here? Over the next 10 years, while working at the VA hospital, Donald killed at least 15 more people, despite his joining the occult group.
Not surprised.
He did a lot of his older methods, the suffocating and the oxygen tank stuff, but he also started poisoning people's food with rat poison and injecting people with cyanide.
That's so scary. And where's he getting that stuff? Well, I guess rat poison's probably
from the hospital.
He
also started using arsenic. Now, cyanide was used in hospitals for a lot of like real reasons, but it's also a very effective poison.
Yeah, I only know it as a poison. It has like benefits, like maybe in small doses.
Yeah. And so Donald started collecting it in very small amounts by stealing from the hospital supply, which is something you could not get away with now, or like you'd have to try like be way more sneaky than Donald was, because now everything's documented in like digital.
It's good,
you know.
That is good.
Eventually he had collected about 30 pounds of it at home, which sounds like a lot to me. During this time, Donald also made his first move at harming somebody outside of a hospital setting.
Oh, wow.
Donald was dating a man. And I think this might be the same guy. Yeah, I think this. No, this is not the same guy because the other guy died. Anyway, Donald was dating a man, and the two argued a lot. So Donald started poisoning his food with arsenic.
Oh my God!
Not enough to kill him, just enough to make him sick.
So sadistic.
Yeah. So, John Douglas noted that this is a very important step for Donald because it started him going outside of his comfort zone, which was the hospital setting.
Yeah, because he knows he's not going to get caught there.
Yes, Donald knew his way around the hospital setting, and he'd studied multiple institutions at this point, multiple administrative teams. He'd used so many different methods. He was like an expert in killing people in a hospital, but killing people outside of a hospital shows that he's starting to escalate. It means his pool of victims is growing exponentially, and it's a very scary idea for anybody around him.
Yeah.
In 1980, Donald began dating a man named Carl Heuer. And at some point in the relationship, Donald learned that Carl was apparently picking up local men at the park on Mondays specifically.
Okay.
Donald was not having any of this, so he started poisoning Carl's food every Sunday night so that he would be sick every Monday.
Wow.
He wouldn't be able to like flirt with guys on Monday. There was also a neighbor of his, a woman who Donald suspected was trying to break up his relationship. And he thought that she was spreading rumors that Donald was cheating on Carl. Other than that, Donald later said that he liked her and thought that she was really nice most of the time. But he started poisoning her with acrylic acid. And when he found that that wasn't working, he tried infecting her with the AIDS virus, which he somehow got a live sample of from work.
How?
I have no idea, but this is confirmed. When that brilliant plan didn't work, he infected her with hepatitis B using some sort of serum.
It's crazy how much he like thinks outside the box to do these things.
Yeah, he like loves getting creative.
Yeah, this is like a bad outlet for his creativity.
Yeah, and this hepatitis B situation made her very sick, and she did end up going to the hospital, but she did recover, and nobody ever suspected foul play.
I mean, why would you? Who would do that to somebody?
I know, it's like it would never be your like first, second, third, or fourth guess. Like,
no,
how did this happen?
Yeah.
Then there was another neighbor, a woman named Helen Metzger, and Donald claims that Carl had stolen $100,000 from her, and she was going to go to the cops. And of course, Donald would not have this, so he gave her a jar of mayonnaise and a pie, both laced with arsenic. She got super sick and became partially paralyzed and required a tracheotomy to breathe before she eventually passed away. So that is a slow and painful death.
Yeah.
Medical professionals.
It's something that he's done multiple times. Like he clearly does it that way on purpose.
Yes. So medical professionals attributed her symptoms at the time and her death to Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a disease that can end up paralyzing you.
I mean, they just have to guess what it is, really.
Yeah. So. And Donald got away with that too. And Donald was a pallbearer at her funeral.
Oh my God. The audacity.
Yes. He started poisoning a lot of people in his life who annoyed him. He started just like
who annoy him.
He just started getting super liberal with the poisonings.
Wow. He has so much of it, Madison. Like he's got
30 pounds. I think Noah is like just hit 30 pounds.
Aw.
That's like that's a lot.
Yeah, that is
arsenic.
A lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
So Carl's father, Donald was annoyed with him, so Donald poisoned him with arsenic. And then when he was sent to the hospital for a stroke, Donald went in to visit him there and poisoned his pudding, and he died.
Fucked up.
He poisoned Carl's mother as well, but that didn't kill her.
And nobody's noticing that all these people are just getting poisoned.
No,
poison is also a smart way to kill. Like that's a smart way to do it too, because they could be sick. Like it's not just like you're stabbing them.
None of them none of them had autopsies. He went to Donald's father was there for a stroke and died, and he was an old man.
I mean, he knows when he can get away with it.
Yeah, and arsenic, if you're not checking for arsenic, you're not going to find it, especially if you don't get an autopsy.
Right.
Which a lot of these people just didn't get autopsies.
Scary.
Carl was getting annoyed with Donald's mood swings and erratic behavior, and he was not aware of all the murdering, but he finally asked Donald to move out. Pissed off about this, Donald tried for the next 2 years to poison Carl, but was unsuccessful.
Oh, lucky.
Lucky Carl.
Yeah.
Donald killed a few more people outside of the hospital, including some exes, that guy who he was in a relationship with for 15 years on and off. I don't know when
so many people
killed him, but he did. Someone who Carl had been fighting with, and Donald was promoted to morgue supervisor at this time. And on top of that, he also joined some sort of Nazi group.
Oh.
Donald claimed that he was not sympathetic to the Nazis, but that he was doing some sort of reconnaissance mission on the inside so that he could attempt to bring them down. Like,
okay.
Very random. Okay. But I think this is kind of like the occult group. Like he's like, okay, I gotta do, like, how am I gonna get out? Like,
I guess he really wants to belong, but he's like picking the like kind of the worst places.
Yeah, and I don't know like what choices he has. Like, I don't know.
And also, don't Nazis hate gay people? I feel like they do.
Yes. Well, and he's constantly putting himself like he's just like a gay man, probably closeted. He's working at a Catholic hospital with all these nuns who are loving him, probably because they don't know he's gay. Then he gets himself into like a very heterosexual satanic occult group. He goes specific to the Air Force. Like this is a don't ask, don't tell time.
So I guess he does have like, I mean, I'm sure he must have all these repressed like feelings about
issues.
it.
And I almost wonder if like he's got some sort of thing where he kind of like enjoys the like because in all these situations too, like at the Air Force, he had a relationship with a man, so like that must have been a secret relationship,
right?
Maybe he likes the like sneaking around part, and like maybe that is like an exciting thing to him.
He likes
maybe he like likes, maybe it's like a kind of masochistic thing of his. I don't know, like who knows. But it's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 1985, there was an incident.
Oh.
Some security guards of the hospital felt Donald was acting suspiciously, and they demanded to search his bag. Okay. And in the bag, they found needles, rubber gloves, scissors, drug paraphernalia, a .38 caliber handgun.
Oh, why do you have that?
Some occult book and a book.
Occult book.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Probably like the Satanic Bible or whatever. And a book on the serial killer Charles Sobrage.
Oh, you and him could have had a nice discussion about that. He's the only person who's heard of Charles Sobrage other than you.
Yeah, well, it was in the 80s, so like it was much more like prominent at the time.
That somebody else who did medical stuff, but to himself, not actually. No, he poisoned a lot of people too.
He did.
But like, the medical stuff.
He would be somebody to learn from if you're poisoning people.
Yeah, he was good at it.
Yeah. So this was a pretty like suspicious mix of items. So they also decided to search Donald's locker, where they found a human liver sample. And they're like,
God, why?
Why
are you keeping it in there? Like, keep it somewhere else.
Locker. I know, like,
so creepy.
That's not hidden enough.
Everyone's just like putting their stuff in their lockers, and that's what he has in there.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, okay, this is where Donald gets taken down. And you people are wrong.
What?
There was a pathetic little investigation, but since the hospital didn't want to make a huge public stink, they fined Donald $50 for the firearm thing.
I mean.
And then they let him quietly resign and fuck off. And nothing was added to his criminal record. Nobody looked into any of his past offenses. And so Donald just packed up, found a new hospital job 7 months later.
It's like, guys, think about the future people that he's going to murder. Like, you don't want to make a big deal out of it. What about the next hospital he works at?
Well, yeah. So that's the problem with, and I'm sure, I think that it must be like a bigger problem with private hospitals where like your reputation really counts for things, and you don't want people to think like, oh, I've got somebody fucking around here. So you're just like, okay, just go away. Not good.
No.
So in February of 1986, Donald got a part-time job as a nurse's aide at Daniel Drake Memorial Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
Nobody there asked him anything about his old job or why he left, and he was free to continue doing his thing. It was not long before Daniel killed his first Drake Hospital patient, a man named Nathaniel Watson. Nathaniel was in a semi-coma, and Donald smothered him with a garbage can liner. It was only 4 days later that Donald killed another patient in the exact same manner.
4 days. Wow.
4 days. And then he poisoned 2 more people. Over the next 10 months, Donald killed at least 21 more people. Mostly
this is so many people. How many people is this by now?
High kill count. I don't know how many at this point, because like I'm not even. It's going to be like
the surface.
50, especially like as I was saying, like outside of the hospital is like anyone who annoyed him. He was just, and I don't know who all of them are.
Anybody who annoyed him.
I'll give you some rougher estimates later.
Okay.
So things in Donald's personal life also took a pretty steep dive downhill.
No.
Carl and him had been on and off again, and it seemed like it had finally ended for good. Donald started seeing a therapist for his depression, and then he tried to kill himself one more time by driving his car off a mountain road.
Wow, that didn't kill him?
No, he did not die, but he suffered some head injuries.
Oh, God, the last thing he needs.
Yeah, exactly. More blows to the head. Donald was back at work, and he made his next kill, 44-year-old John Powell. Now, John was in a motorcycle accident and he was not wearing a helmet, and so that's why he was in the hospital. And he had made a few small signs that he might recover, but he was in very bad shape. So when he died suddenly, nobody thought anything of it.
Yeah.
But one thing very different about John's case, there was a policy in the Hamilton County where every motorcycle accident victim got an autopsy to determine the exact cause of death.
Interesting.
Because motorcycle accidents are like driving a motorcycle is really dangerous.
So my God, yes. It's so scary.
When the coroner opened up John, and especially without a helmet, my God.
Yeah.
When the coroner opened up John's body, a powerful odor of bitter almonds assaulted him in the face. It was the undeniable smell of cyanide.
Wow.
And fun fact, about 1 in 4 people are not able to smell the scent of cyanide. And I've heard a number of I've heard that like it's a much smaller percentage who can smell the smell of burnt almonds or whatever, but some people can't, basically.
Good thing this person could.
Yes. Luckily, Dr. Lee Lehman had the ability to smell it, or it never would have been detected or checked for. So Dr. Lee Lehman went right to the police.
Good.
And it did not take long for the investigation to get to Donald Harvey. They started investigating all the staff at the hospital, and everybody was like, they were polygraphing everybody, and everyone was like, yeah, for sure. Donald initially said he would, after researching how to beat a polygraph. And the day he was supposed to take it, he called in sick. And this was very suspicious. And he was the only one who was trying to get out of it. So he was taken in for questioning. During the questioning, Donald admitted to putting cyanide in John Powell's gastric tube. He claimed that he felt bad for John and didn't want to see him suffer.
Come on,
if you will. Upon his confession,
it's like, that's not your decision to make.
No, yeah,
you can't that's not an excuse. Like, you don't have
no, but that's where you see like this is like the very narcissistic, like justifying thing.
Yeah.
So after his confession, detectives got a search warrant for Donald's home, and they found a bunch of arsenic, cyanide, books on poisons, and his diary, which contained details on how he killed John Powell, which shockingly didn't seem to have any other confessions besides John Powell.
Oh, interesting. Because I feel like keeping a diary, it's like you're not going to be lying in your diary. So
no. Donald was indicted for murder in the first degree on April 6th, 1987. Mm-hmm. Donald and his lawyer filed a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, and he was held on a $200,000 bond. But then they started investigating further, and it was looking like there may be more victims. Donald's lawyer saw the writing on the wall and wanted to get ahead of it. He asked Donald to be upfront with him and tell him how many people he had killed. And when Donald said he didn't quite know, his lawyer was like, come on, man, we need to get ahead of this. And Donald was like, well, I could give you an estimate. And his lawyer was like, wait, holy shit, you don't know because there are so many. Holy shit. So Donald admitted to killing 33 people. Investigators were blown away.
It's more than that. It's more than that.
Oh, we'll get there.
Oh my God. That's already so many, but.
Yeah. So the investigators were like, what the fuck? And he was quite candid and detailed in his confessions, as I told you earlier. Initially, they were very skeptical about some of the things that he was saying. But after exhuming a number of bodies and performing autopsies, they realized that everything that he said, they were able to corroborate, and it was checked out. And they did not catch him lying about anything. And he made a lot
you mentioned that. You mentioned that.
Obviously, they could not look into every little thing, but the things that they could, they found to be credible. Now, and I think the whole thing about him admitting to killing 33 people, like I think he knows he killed more than that, but I think he probably worked things out with his lawyer and was like, okay, we'll confess these ones because there's evidence for this. And this is like, what I can prove kind of thing. I don't know.
Right.
So on August 19th, 1987, Donald pled guilty to 24 counts of aggravated murder and 4 counts of attempted murder and 1 count of
Hey, what's the difference between
assault.
Aggravated and just murder?
I think aggravated murder is just murder.
Okay.
And attempted murder is when they don't die. So aggravated murder is a more serious charge than murder because it occurs when somebody kills another person while in prison or while committing, attempting to commit, or fleeing after committing a crime such as rape, kidnapping, trespassing, or burglary.
Okay.
So there's just like extenuating circumstances, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like under specific circumstances. He got 4 consecutive sentences of 20 years to life and $270,000 in fines. On September 7th, 1987, Donald was indicted in Kentucky, where he confessed to murdering 12 people at Marymount Hospital. He pleaded guilty in November of that year and was sentenced to 8 life terms plus 20 years.
Good.
In February of 1988, Donald pled guilty on 3 additional murders in Cincinnati and 3 attempted murders, and he got 3 more life sentences plus 3 terms of 7 to 25 years. Everything he didn't get charged for just didn't have enough. They didn't have enough evidence. Most people, including his lawyer, think he murdered as many as 70 people.
Wow.
But there are even some people who have investigated the case and believe that it is much higher. I heard one guy. Yeah, one guy believes it's somewhere in like the 120 range.
That's
like one in
so scary. How I know I keep asking you, but how big of a time period was this in?
So his last conviction was 1988 and his first murder, I think, was 1970.
Okay, so he was at it for a while.
Yeah.
Like, I think most people, their crimes are in a shorter span before they get caught.
Yes, he was able to get away with this for a very long time.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. Many years after his incarceration in the 2000s, at some point, John Douglas was presented with the opportunity, I think it was 2008, to interview Donald Harvey in prison for a TV show. The interview and Douglas's analysis of that interview are super interesting. In that interview, Donald is very chill, smiley, calm, and polite. He talked very openly about his murders, but throughout the whole thing, he kept everything super surface level, never showing any vulnerability, remorse, or introspection. And here I'm going to start to show you, get ready with the clips, and they'll be in for people to see, especially if you're watching on YouTube.
Okay.
So Donald clearly holds on to the idea, get ready with clip number 1.
I'm ready.
Donald clearly holds on to the idea that he was performing mercy killings on his victims. Most of them he claimed wanted to die, but just didn't have anyone to advocate for him. And watch clip number 1.
So you would consider those mercy killings?
Some of them had been in comas for many, semi-comas, in and out. Didn't know nothing. What I was doing, I thought was right. And the patients that I took care of, I like to think, I made their passing easy. They didn't give me permission, no. But some of the patients didn't have no one to give permission for them. They didn't have a choice, and sometimes there was no family there to make that choice for them. And I made it for them. I was being the judge and the jury and executioner. Patients may have had a month to 6 months to live. And they were mostly put there just to die. The families, instead of sending them to a nursing home, they put them there. Or if they had no family, the county or whatever would put them there. Those are a lot of the type patients that I terminated.
Did you consider them victims, by the way? The patients?
No, I don't consider them. They were my patients. I never looked at it as murder till I was actually arrested. I always looked at it as mercy. Right. Today, they have the hospice units, and that's assisted suicide, but it's with the person's
making a choice.
Yeah, making a choice.
Right. These people never had a choice.
He's so creepy. It's like that doesn't explain it, and you murdered people outside of the hospital too. So
and he's like, yeah, but they have the hospices now. It's like, yeah, but that's like a choice thing. It's like, which is like a huge difference, like a massive, like makes all the difference in the world. It's not just like
it's not a mercy killing when you make the decision for them.
Yeah, and he just it's like, oh yes, well now technically it's their choice. Like that's
the whole thing that matters
between murder and not murder.
Yeah.
But
not
like
an excuse, dude.
Yeah, like as you can see, he's just like a soft-spoken kind of Southern gentleman kind of guy.
He has a really soft voice, and that's creepy knowing what he did.
Yeah, right.
Because like you know how in hospitals, like you think of nurses as like having like gentle voices. Like he probably talked to people that way, and that's why they're like, yeah, you're just a regular like.
If you did not know anything about this guy, you'd be like, oh, he's like, I'd love to have him as my orderly.
Yeah.
So then he starts, so he sets up this narrative that he's like mercy killing, and John Douglas is like, okay, yeah, but what about all this other shit? And then he starts with his excuses. So roll clip number 2.
Okay. But they weren't all mercy.
No, they weren't
all mercy. No. Now the first death will occur at about 18 years of age with you. Can you tell me about that? How that happened?
Just one guy, he'd had a stroke. He had an IV in, and he got the IV out, and the sister told me to go and clean up the bed and change the IV, take it out because it was empty. And when I went to pull back the sheet, he covered me in stool within his hand, and I smothered him to death.
How did you do that?
With a pillow. I wasn't going to take any more. I mean, I'd had enough. And when he put the stool in my face was the breaking point.
You think you believe that? That's what happened?
It started me on the roller coaster, which I couldn't get off.
I don't know if I buy that.
So it's so interesting because John Douglas goes on to talk about that specific excuse where he was like, it set me on a roller coaster, which I couldn't get off. And he's like, I'm pretty sure that one therapist probably told him that, and he's just like stuck on to that idea. And I think
it's an excuse that makes him not responsible. It's like, oh, I got stuck on a roller coaster.
And I think like it's partially probably comes from like a truthful situation. I think that probably like it was that instance that like made him super mad, and like that's where he did kill somebody, and like it did lead to him doing that kind of thing. But he whereas some people see it as like, okay, this was like the inciting incident, he sees it as like, well, that justifies my actions. Like he set me off, it's his fault. And like I just got on this roller coaster, and it's like
he's a hospital patient, and it's like he's a hospital patient. Like it's not like he's like trying to wrong you.
No, it's like that's part of the job. It's a very unfortunate part, and like that, maybe you go to the hospital and like get, I don't know, you deal with that situation as you deal with it, but it's not an excuse to be murdering people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so then John asked him about the guy who he shoved the coat hanger through the catheter to kill him.
Okay. Explain to me how that was intended to be merciful in any type of way.
Well, go roll on clip number 3.
God, I actually I don't know what he could possibly say.
And so you went in there, you gave him the catheter, and then you straightened out a coat hanger. You ran that baby right through there, right into, I guess, it was 2 feet or so into his intestines.
Because they caused him to have peritonitis.
Peritonitis, right. He died a couple of days later.
I shouldn't have done that. I should have never been allowed around that patient again. That was poor security on the hospital's part. I mean, you beat me up today and then I'm taking care of you tomorrow? Oh, I don't think so.
That's called projection. So it's like projection. Well, the hospital shouldn't have put me with this guy. And they probably shouldn't have done it, but you blame more of the hospital.
I mean, I got a pump not this big on my head. My ribs are bruised, and he poured urine on me, and he kicked me several times. He cold cocked me with that metal urinal. I should have never been allowed around the patient. They're not responsible for the death part. They're responsible for his security.
It's interesting because maybe he got triggered about being abused as a kid, and he's like somebody should have been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like
he's like, this person abused me, even though it's like this person's not abusing you necessarily like intentionally the way that they did when they were like when you were younger, but it's like I'm sure a part of him has that unresolved feeling of like, wow, I wish an adult was looking out for me.
For sure. And that's like, for his childhood issues, absolutely a fair thing to say. Like,
yeah,
but not in this situation. And this is where that like little bit of like narcissism and superiority comes from. Like, they should not have let me, like, it's their fault.
It's absolutely not their responsibility. And you know for a fact that like they don't have that type of security in place. So,
and did you tell them that happened? I don't
well,
know.
He's like, I had this bump on my head, and like,
I shouldn't have never been allowed around him. Like, okay, well then you're admitting that you're so dangerous that you shouldn't have been allowed around this person. Like, yeah, it's just, you're right, you shouldn't have. It's very interesting that like he would like would just like be so bold as to say something like that and not think that everyone would be like, no, you know, like you like truly believe that that's like something that people will like be like, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
John Douglas felt that Donald presented a pretty classic case. He figures that Donald turned to killing out of like a deep feeling of inadequacy. Okay. Killing vulnerable people was the only thing in his life that would make him feel powerful and important.
I can see that because he loved to play God. And I'm sure like an element of it was sadistics. Like, I suffered, now I want somebody else to. It's like an outlet for that.
Yeah. And like, he's like, and you can see it in all of his like denials of everything, and like he's really hanging on, like in that clip specifically, he's really hanging on to the idea that the hospital bears some responsibility. He's really putting their responsibility on other people.
That's interesting. I'm sure some of that actually is like, it's not fair that he feels that way, but that's just a projection of how he feels towards authority.
Yeah, and it's a defense mechanism so that he doesn't have to like admit and feel guilty, right?
Yeah.
It's very much like Charles Sobrage. She's like, well, like, it's not my fault. It's the fault of everybody else. Right.
Yeah.
And then this clip, I just found like this question and answer very interesting. Roll on clip 4.
Number 4. Okay.
When you're in bed at nighttime or you're alone, what kind of things do you think of? Do you ever think of the crimes that got you here?
No.
Any of them? What kind of things do you think of?
I'm building a log house right now, and I've built it 2 or 3 different ways. I'm on 4 bedrooms right now, but I only got 3 baths.
You're doing it in your mind?
Yeah. Sometimes I write down stuff, and then maybe next year it'll be a church or something different.
Ooh, creepy.
See, he I think John Douglas in this whole interview tried a number of times to get him to like be vulnerable and open up and like, it was, go deeper. Yeah. And he just reflected it or deflected at every single opportunity. Like, he's asked, like, what do you think when you're alone at night? And he's like, I just think about building a house in my head. Like, that's so weird.
Yeah. And it's definitely not true. Like, there's no way.
But he's clearly trying, like, still, like, you're in prison for your life and you're still trying to pretend that like everything's fine and I'm just a nice guy.
I mean, at this point, I feel like he just has no like he has nothing to go for. Like, why is he going to be admitting it to them? You know?
Whereas some people get into prison and like for example, the Iceman killer, like he got into prison and he's like, okay, well, my life is pretty much over now, and just like fully admitted to everything. And like,
and some people at that point, that's the only gets out there, just like, I'll tell you everything.
Yeah, which that's another really good documentary is the Iceman Confessions.
Yes, I remember. I think I've seen that.
Really, really good. Very interesting.
I heard some people say that he was like lying in some of those
Richard
things.
Kuklinski. It's probably the case, but even it's not about, I think it's not necessarily about like taking what they're saying as word for word true.
It's just seeing them talk, and
it's hearing what they have to say. And I would never trust like a serial killer is just like telling the truth. Right. It's like, what are they, how are they portraying things to you? Like, clearly this guy, Donald Harvey, is just saying what he wants you to think, but it's then it's the analysis of other people like a John Douglas that's so interesting, and like realizing what he's trying to get you to think. Right.
Yeah.
And then roll on clip number 5. This is just another interesting little tidbit.
Okay. Wow, this is pretty fucked. I mean, I feel like he seemed so self-aware, but now it's not looking like that.
Do you consider yourself a sociopath?
Well, that's what most people consider me.
What do you think?
I'm just Donald Harvey.
Yeah.
I haven't changed a bit. I have been rehabilitated. I'm ready to go back to the streets.
Like, dude, nobody wants you in the streets.
No. And it's sad because it's like, maybe if he grew up in a place that was accepting of him being gay, it could have been different, you know? Like, it's like he almost seems like a nice guy, but then it's like, no,
and not only, and like you're just like murdering anybody who just bothers you, neighbors.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm rehabilitated. Like, bitch, you're not. Like,
Definitely
did you hear a
not.
word you just said in this whole interview? Like, you just like lied and deflected the entire time.
Yeah.
You are not rehabilitated. You're still blaming the hospital for the
I'm sure,
most gruesome death you created.
I'm sure he knows that, but he's just like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of me talking to him?
Yeah. And he just like has his little smile, and like he's like a cute little nice looking man.
That's the thing. Like, he almost
which
seems
is so
normal.
scary. Yeah. So in March of 2017, Donald was murdered in prison by another inmate who beat him to death. He was 64 years old.
Wow.
And that is the story of Donald Harvey and his brutal murders.
Was he murdered, like he was targeted because of his crimes?
I believe so. It's hard to know. Like, nobody's like admitting to like doing it or why or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess they probably caught the guy who did it, but you know, prison murders are very sketchy generally.
Yeah. I always wonder, because I feel like in a lot of those cases, it's the person being targeted for their crimes, but sometimes it could just be something within the prison itself.
Yeah. Especially because it was 2017 and he was originally imprisoned in like 85 or whatever. So he'd been there for a long time.
Yeah.
But like,
and he never came out and admitted anything else, really. Like, he just kind of stuck with that story.
I think he's like admitted to like his lawyer says that he's probably killed about 68, 70 people. And I'm sure like he's probably confessed to murders that like they couldn't prove that he did. Definitely. And stuff like that. Like, but there's another guy that I was saying, there was a guy who thought it was in the hundreds, but is a guy named Jim Fisher, who's the author of Forensics Under Fire, which I didn't really look into, but I heard him being interviewed somewhere, and he thinks the number could be as high as 130 people.
That's insane. But I mean, I kind of believe it, because he could do it so quickly and easily, and he was doing it sometimes 4 days apart. I mean, you have an unlimited access to vulnerable people to murder, essentially.
Yeah. And even when his lawyer started asking, like, he didn't know how many people he had killed. He's like, would you take an estimate?
Yeah, that's so crazy. Many that he probably wasn't keeping count.
Oh.
Wow.
So, just be careful of the people that you meet in the hospital.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Tell them how loved you are and how many people care about you.
Yeah, talk about all your friends.
For an autopsy.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And it's like it's the older people who you really worry about, the lonely people. Like this in Canada, there was a girl doing that in long-term care. I think her name was Elizabeth something.
Where in Canada?
I forget if it was Ontario or
Quebec. Oh my god,
probably Ontario, because fucking all the murderers are here.
Wow,
but it's interesting too, because she was a lesbian, and she was like a closeted lesbian, or like her family rejected her, something like it was. So like her like sexuality was I don't know how much it had to do with the murders or whatever, but like it's kind of a similar thing too. But this is a whole kind of like genre of killers, is the like hospital, like people like to call them angels of death, and then some people have a problem with that name.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word angel. Nice. Yeah, I don't think I'd use the word angel.
Yeah, but it does seem I think it's a God complex. It's wanting to have power over people. It's enjoying, like, it's a sadistic joy of,
yes.
Or some getting some sort of
feeling
of power from taking people's lives, and then all the like people that you let live and you help, right?
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, because that doesn't generally come up, because you just talk about the people they murdered, but it's the whole game to these people. And they're people who are generally, I think, have who feel like shitty about aspects of their life, low self-esteem, whatever it is, and that's it's very easy to overpower very vulnerable people,
right?
People who murder children.
That's pretty fucked up. I'm kind of not surprised I haven't heard about him. I feel like these types of murderers aren't as talked about.
No, it's the kind of thing where it's like it would be really, really big at the time.
Right.
Especially
or
if
in
you're
the
in the area.
Yeah.
I heard another story of it. There was this doctor who opened up a new practice in a new town or whatever. And at her practice, there was like all these babies who started having these, like, they would be taken in and like have some like heart problem and have to be rushed off to the hospital. And a lot of them died. And it turned out it was like a woman that she hired, one of the nurses.
That's
who
so
was
scary.
like injecting them with something to make them sick so that she could save them.
That's so scary. Babies are so vulnerable too, and they can't talk, obviously.
Perfect victims.
Yeah.
Horrible. Yeah.
And people know that. That's the thing. Like, even if you're not fully in control of your actions and part of you feels bad about what you're doing, you still know who is vulnerable to you.
That is the most like pathetic aspect of like a serial killer, is like you go after vulnerable people because you're so pathetic. You can't like go up against somebody your own size. So you have to pick out vulnerable people who you can overpower.
Wow.
And that's like what makes them such losers.
And I think for him too, he probably internalized, like he had so much internalized homophobia where he's like, I'm weak. Like, cause that's like the thing about, like, people say, like, if you're gay, like, that's the thing. It's like, you're not a man, you're weak, which is not true. And like, gay people have been part of society forever. It's just like Western, norms or whatever, but he probably internalized that he was weak. So he's like, let me pick on the weakest people, because that's what you do when you feel weak, is you pick on someone weaker than you.
Exactly. And also it's like he's a smart person, but he's just like never really tried very hard, didn't finish high school,
right?
Didn't got a job at a factory, whatever, that didn't work out, and now he's working as an orderly, like cleaning up poop and pee and all this shit, and
right?
Like, fuck this, I'm sick of it. But also, like, you could have finished high school. You could have done something else.
Yeah. I don't feel bad. I feel bad that he got abused,
sexually abused as a child.
Yeah, that I feel terrible. And the head injuries, like, that's really shitty. But I feel like the head injuries could have played a role. I could see that
for sure. It's like, you will never know, but it's very possible. They seem to be like pretty big head injuries.
Yes,
especially for the age.
And it's kind of like, if it affects your brain and your brain just doesn't develop right, maybe there is something physical that's just halting you from having a sense of morality.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is pretty scary too.
Oh, what do you rate this? What would you rate this?
Like, honestly, like 8 or 9 for me. I really like medical hospitals.
Underdoing it.
No, like it's specific because hospitals are like very scary to me.
Yeah.
Specifically for this reason. And I've already been afraid of this. And now it has confirmed that this happens often.
Yeah. Just if you can help going up by yourself.
That's true.
Don't go by
I don't think I've ever gone by myself, but just like, it's what I said before. It is partially irrational. Like, just like the smell of like the clean hospital smell and all the like disposable stuff, like the napkins and like just everything about it creeps me out.
Yeah.
Like anything because of the association with hospitals.
Every time I go into a hospital, I get this like, and not anymore. Now that I've like had a lot of experience with all this fucking babies.
Yeah, you're more used to
it. Before, like every time I'd go into the hospital, I'd just be like, am I going to leave? Am I going to get out of here? And like that just creeped me out.
I would think the same, to be honest.
So try to stay healthy out there.
Yeah.
And be very grateful for whatever health. I'm very grateful for my pretty uneventful health history.
Yeah.
Definitely. Not everybody is so lucky.
Yes.
So please, everybody, check us out on Instagram, on YouTube. Please follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us. That'd be great. And Twitter at Who's Knocking Podcast on Instagram, at Who's Knocking Pod on Twitter. Email us at hello@whosknockingpodcast.com. Let us know if you have any really good true crime documentary recommendations. Always looking, but I've probably seen it, but still interested. Maybe Hannah hasn't.
No.
Be careful when you go to the hospital and just stay safe out there because you never know
who's knocking.
Goodbye. This podcast is produced in collaboration with Lost Line Media. Artwork by August Digital. Music by Matthew Cook.